Evening or welcome to Edition. We're back. Well, I'm back. Rewiring the brain from addiction. So, Ashly, how are you?
You know, I'm here. Remodeling is a little stressful, but it's all right. It's good. It's good.
Just letting you know, stress is a choice. There you go.
Not a choice because I'm experiencing it right now involuntarily.
Oh, go on. Why, Gilly?
No, it is kind of, no, you're right. It's kind of a choice, but it's kind of not. Like, I mean, like you expose yourself to stressors and, you can choose like how much to take on, but then like the degree of stress could be a little bit out of your hands sometimes.
Well, but we're in full control of our responses. But anyway, moving on.
He's just pushing the button today, huh?
How are you, Nance? Good to see you back. I know you came last week, but yeah.
Not so easy to press those buttons when I'm driving. I'm doing good. And, talking about the stresses in our life and acknowledging the fact of where we're at is important. So often when we are living in the patterns of addictions, we continue to tell our lies. So telling the truth about where you're at and what's going on is important. So showing up, doing good work, and doing the best that I can every day with the struggles that I'm living.
Absolutely.
Looking at the brightness, looking for the brightness every single day.
Well, the brightness is within. But anyway, hi, Nick.
Hi, yeah, it's good to see you. Yes, I'm good. I had my son last week, so that's always a good thing. So that's my therapy. A week with my son, so that's good.
Absolutely. And Janet, how are you?
I'm great. And I'm choosing to be great.
That's good. Oh, I'm ignoring Kerry's comment. Stress isn't a choice. To me, it is. But anyway.
I was going to say, thank you for validating.
How do you want to feel? Do you know what? We choose around that. If we want to stress a little, and I've been there, didn't like it. Choose other ways. But it takes practice.
Yeah.
Adam, I think you need to take your own advice. Mr. Stress is a choice.
Oh.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, back at you.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We can go down this rabbit hole, but you literally, like, you cannot control what you feel. You just can't. Like, there are things you can and there are things you can't. Like, we could dig into the science of it, but like, you can't. So Carrie,
we'll be here all day, won't we?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, rewiring the brain from addiction. So I think I can speak for all 6 of us here. We've all got some sort of an addiction attached to us.
Yep.
It could be whatever. Obviously, at one point it was alcohol. People can be addicted to shopping. Anything. Yeah. At the minute, my 13-year-old's addicted to arguments. But it's one of them, isn't it? So, yeah, how do we kick this off about, I'd say mostly sharing our experience about addiction in general, maybe? Because I know with Nancy, she's gone through a lot when it comes to addiction. I know. I know. I see that smirk as well. But yeah, it can be really triggering, shall I say, for many when it comes to addiction, because it's taking that accountability, isn't it?
And for Nancy, it's what kind of addiction? Like, if you don't mind sharing. I'm also curious to see, like, if we are sharing this information, like what people are generally drawn to or what they've struggled with in the past, because there's so many different types.
Well, for me, the addictions have been multi-leveled. I was addicted to cocaine. I was addicted to crack. I was addicted to marijuana. I was addicted to cigarettes. For me, it was layers and levels of different reasons. I mean, there's not one reason why we choose an addiction in our life. For me, it was connecting with others was why I began to use cocaine. That was why. That was my why. It's not as though there's a good reason to begin using drugs or a bad reason to begin using drugs. That's simply what it was for me. And it's about acknowledging the decisions that I've made and now surrounding myself with people who are a continual support for me. I'm not ashamed of my addictions. They were a part of my life, and I have moved far from them. And when I acknowledge that and I give voice to it, I think it helps other people give voice to their own as well. So I'm an open book when it comes to my addictions.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got a story, you guys. And I remember we were both intertwining that experience when I came on your podcast, Nance. Yeah, which was powerful. It was powerful. Which it's been a few months since then. So, but yeah, obviously mine was alcohol, which everybody's know, but it's getting there. So, what about you lot? When it comes to
addictions can be different things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be
me,
shopping, it can be chocolate. People are addicted to pornographic things. Addiction can be anything.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for me, lots of them, collecting would be like stacks and stacks of wool and stuff. Just shopping it would come into, right? I'd see something or cross stitch or something, but also busy. It's keeping busy kept lots of things away until they didn't, and then you crash, and it takes something to crash you, like any other. Before you seek help, you know, in my case, yeah, it was choosing to be here or not be here.
Yeah.
And I chose.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, for me, I mean, cigarettes and marijuana for a long time. Definitely the main ones. I mean, I think also perhaps exercise. For about many years, I did it sort of 4 or 5 times a week in the gym, and I've had exercise classes for about sort of 7 years, and I ended up with problems with my knees and hips from doing too much intensive exercise. So I had to stop all exercise for a while and gradually go back and do some. I was doing almost unhealthy. I think I was addicted to the adrenaline of the exercise. I think I was addicted to the high of doing exercise, and my escape was that. But I was doing too much for too long. I was literally 5 times a week. I was in a gym and going to classes. So exercise was one of my addictions. It was for a long time. But yeah, otherwise cigarettes and marijuana for many years. And I think that's and again, you know, it is for me. You know, I've dabbled in many drugs over the years, but yeah, it's where's that loss of control, and definitely. Yeah, it was the exercise and the marijuana where I didn't have a control at all, which is why I'd stop both of those eventually with some support.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Gilly? Or do I say your addiction's dancing on Instagram?
That's funny. That would be a good addiction. Not very shameful.
No, they're brilliant.
I was just looking off because I was trying to remember like specific numbers, because I was literally just in the middle of like revising my chapter about behavioral addictions. And I really think these were the numbers. So, you know, but I'm relying on my memory here. But I think it was like 25% of just the general population will develop like substance use issues like at some point in their life, whereas it was like 50% of people with ADHD. So that's like double. And I'm bringing up ADHD because, you know, you said like everyone has got issues with addiction, but it's not necessarily true. Maybe there are certain things that some people will be drawn to and they would like really love, but for it to reach the point of like an addiction where it, you know, interfering with your daily functioning and, you know, causing significant problems in your life, like in your relationships, and it's actually causing like physiological problems where you become dependent, you develop a tolerance and things like that. It's, I guess, like 25% for substance use, but 50% for people with ADHD who have lower levels of dopamine, which is, you know, the neurotransmitter that is associated with like rewards. So like if, you know, you are using something like a substance, or if you're engaging in behavioral addiction like shopping, you know, that add to cart is that little spike in dopamine. And that's what makes us continue. And some people are more vulnerable to developing those addictions than others. It makes sense. You know, people with ADHD would be more vulnerable to developing addictions. But here's like the really, I don't have an addiction. There you go, Carrie. You're so funny. Your comments are funny. Okay. But here's the really interesting part, because my chapter focuses on behavioral addictions, because I was like, there's a lot out there about substance use, and there's not a lot out there about behavioral addictions. So much so that like there isn't even criteria or a diagnosis for shopping addiction. It's not a thing in the DSM, in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. The only behavioral addictions, at least to my knowledge, is gaming disorder.
Gaming, yeah.
No, sorry, not gaming. Gambling disorder, not gaming. Gaming is in the conditions for further consideration or something like that. It's not even a diagnosis. It's only gambling. That's it. And so everything else is kind of hypothetical. But anyway, what I was going to say was it's like 88%, upwards of like 88% of people with ADHD have a behavioral addiction. So it's like 50% for substance use, but like 88% for behavioral addiction. That's like insane. It's like most people with ADHD. So then the question is, why? And it's probably because, you know, it's more accessible across various age groups. So when you're a teen, it's harder to get alcohol and it's harder to get cigarettes. It's much easier to get addicted to video games.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Janet's put something in the private chat as well, which I think is brilliant about, obviously she recommended a podcast where they spoke about there's no addiction without trauma. Does trauma actually prompt an addiction?
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. Sorry.
No? No?
No, because not everyone with ADHD has a history of trauma.
Okay.
Like you can have low levels of dopamine and physiologically, you know, be less like understimulated, and then seek out that stimulation and not have a history of trauma.
Okay.
I would disagree to a certain extent, because a lot of people with ADHD, it is traumatic because of the way the school system is, even their parents. I'll give an example. So there was someone whose relative wasn't willing to put their child on drugs because they had ADHD, and they were appalled that their parent wouldn't put them on drugs so we would be more normal. So when you're not considered normal, isn't that like a trauma? Like I was never considered normal.
It depends how the person takes it, right? Because you can be experienced to trauma, but you may not necessarily develop a traumatic response. Some people are more resilient than others. And the question is also, how are you defining trauma? So yeah, I mean, like if you want to think about it that way, like maybe, but you know, the way trauma is, I guess, like traditionally conceptualized, like if you're experiencing like severe, emotional neglect or criticism, or if it's ongoing, maybe. But again, what matters is how the person responds. Like, are they developing trauma symptoms?
Well, trauma can actually be anything, to be honest. It could be minor things, like, for example, falling off a bike when you're first learning how to ride it and you hurt your knee, for example. That can be trauma to anything.
I worked with a guy that started school. He never stuttered. And he started school and a teacher yelled at him for something. He has stuttered ever since.
Wow.
And it might not happen to the rest of us, right? We can be yelled at and we can rub it off, but it was a traumatic event for him. And so we all take different experiences, just like you said, Julie. We'd all take those different things, absorb them differently. And so that's why it's so hard to define what a trauma is to somebody. We can't define someone else's trauma unless you go to a broader spectrum.
Ashly's just thought trauma was defined to her as unmet expectations.
Adam, with your experiences of the support groups you've attended through the AA,
yes,
has it stood out to you? Because I guess everyone shares their story. Has it stood out that everyone who attends has had some sort of trauma, or does it not? Is there any?
When it comes to, obviously, I'm just speaking from my experience. I can't speak for anyone else. But when it comes to drinking, you're covering up for something. It could be your mistakes. It could be underlying trauma that you was influenced, maybe, like I was. But yeah, there's something behind it. There is. But it is known that drinking, it is a choice because nobody's forcing it down your neck, unless yourself. But yeah, it's obviously getting that message out there where it doesn't take 5 or 6 or 7 drinks to get to you. It takes that very first sip, and that's where the mental obsession comes into play. But yeah, the stories I've heard in AA, and I've heard many stories. There is something covering up for the drug abuse or even alcohol misuse. But anyway, everyone's got different experiences anyway.
I was going to say, like, it probably has something to do with what kind of addiction we're talking about. Like,
yes.
Right? Like, maybe for substance abuse, it's more trauma related, maybe. And then when you're thinking about like behavioral addictions, like a shopping addiction, for instance, like maybe
that Kerry's got.
What?
That Kerry's got.
Abused as a child. I don't know. Like, maybe they just are easily reinforced and they just are bored or understimulated and they develop these habits. And I'm sorry, but like a pigeon, like there's like those pigeon experiments where they peck at the ball or the lever if they get a pellet. And, depending on how often the pellet comes out, like that translates into how often the pigeon is pecking. It's all about reinforcement and reward.
Absolutely. So, Ashly, what was your experience like to prompt your addiction to whinging? No, I'm joking.
Well, I think you and I kind of talked about this before. Like, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. So for me, now that we're kind of having this conversation, I would almost say, I know you and I, when we talked, it was like, okay, food, do you eat just to eat, or do you eat because you're hungry? Are you stress eating? Like, I would say I'm a stress eater at times. Yeah. But then I would also say, for me, another addiction would probably be technology, like my cell phone. It's always on me. I'm either on Facebook. I mean, I'm also growing a business, so there's also that component to it. But I very rarely can set my phone down without checking it. Like if I'm with my children, even as we're homeschooling or we're doing something, playing a game, my phone is right next to me and I will just easily pick it up while I'm waiting for them to take their turn and I'm on my phone. So you could classify that as probably an addiction. Like it's literally interfering with me being present with my children. And I think that's probably most of America these days.
Oh, that's the world, love. That's the world. Everyone's like that.
Yeah, okay, the world instead of America. But like it's that convenience. It's we have it on us at all times. And I mean, I don't have it in here, but oh yeah, I do. So when our kids were getting old enough to be at home alone, we got them a handy dandy old-fashioned flippy phone. And my kids were like, how do we text on this thing? Let me show you. Like that's their emergency phone. But we also have another smartphone, and it drives my husband absolutely bonkers. Like, get off the phone. You guys are addicted to technology. Get off the phone. And we got a family switch for us to be playing family games. Well, if the kids have that, they're always on it. And then they're so completely zoned out. You ask them to do something and it's like, what? Like they don't hear you. And then they, and he gets very frustrated and upset about that because he's like, you guys have a problem. And he will tell the kids that, like, you're not functioning like a true human. Like, go outside and play. Like, your face is in a screen because you're so addicted to these games. I mean, it could be, a app. It could be Nintendo. I mean, it could be anything where it's that technology piece. And I know that they've created it that way, where it's the bright lights, it's the stimulation, it's all of those things firing in the brain. I mean, it's more than just kids, right? So when my kids were little, I didn't want to use TV, if you will, as like a babysitter. But I also think that there are some programs for children that help them develop quicker, if you will. Like my oldest used to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse all the time when he was little.
That's an amazing cartoon.
Okay, great. He would watch Mickey Mouse and he would know his shapes and his letters. And don't get me wrong, would I sit on the floor and we would go through that together? Yeah. But it's also one of those things of if he can have a cartoon teaching him shapes and letters and numbers and colors and all of that, like he's going to connect that probably faster because it's more fun versus, oh, I'm sitting on the floor with mom playing with a block. Like it's just a block, type of a thing. Not using that as an excuse, but that's just how they develop those programs. Again, why we call it programming, I suppose. But
don't get me started, Ashley. Please don't.
But, and I think there can be a lot of judgment around that. Some parents, if you can keep your kids away from technology and TV when they're little, fantastic, great for you. But that doesn't work for every family household, right? So I think we have to also remember in situations like that you have to operate as what works for you, not what the next person is doing, right? So it's that whole comparison piece as well. But yeah, I think technology is probably the biggest addiction.
Okay, so my question to all of you, even everyone in the chat as well, what's the difference from your experience? What's the difference between an interest, an obsession, and an addiction?
It's interesting because I think there's obviously there is some benefit or pleasure to when you start to addictions, or wouldn't start using it, and then probably even drugs, there's a pleasure, and if you just a little bit, maybe there, but it's obviously the amount you do it. Where's it become pleasure, become pain? Where's the pleasure concession? But I mean, even this, the use of phone technology. I see my own son; he's on it all the time. It frustrates me. I think, oh my God, you're addicted. He's constantly on it. He's only 9. yeah, where is that level where something becomes, there are benefits. There's benefits of smartphones, there's benefits of technology, but if you're on it all the time, and then there's clearly a downside to that, and there's a harmful impact to that, and I think everything has a turning point, and it's where something the pleasure or the benefits start being outweighed by the negative impact of overuse. And I think there's definitely are you controlling your use of it, or is it controlling you? Are you and I think that's what I'd sort of see it as. Do you decide how much you use it and when you use it, whatever it is, or is it control? Do you have a control? Is it whatever it is? But yeah.
Well, what we've done with our daughter is, because she's known to obviously do a bedtime routine after she spent hours on it during the day when she's not at school. And then after a bedtime routine, we say, right, okay, it's sleep time. So we go in, settle her all, stuff like that, and then give it about half an hour later, and she's under a pillow playing on a Switch. So we thought, right, we need to change that. We put parental controls on it, which means she cannot go on devices without the password, a parent password that she does not know.
That's smart.
That is smart. But we're thinking about doing it with our eldest. But I don't know how he's going to take it, being 13 years old.
I guess it doesn't matter how he's going to take it. Those are the rules.
And he's still a child, he's still,
He is.
As a parent, I suppose, it's hard, but you have to.
But the thing is, though, I know he's obsessed with his laptop. He's obsessed. Maybe addicted. Maybe obsession and addiction's the same thing. I don't know, but he is. He's addicted to it.
Do you have a conversation with him about it?
Yes.
Like, I'm always curious, why, and that's no different if somebody asked me something too. I'd have to really think of why I continually do something. And sometimes you can get some great insight into that. Children are so wise. My grandchildren,
they are.
We raised them for 2.5 years. Like, I learned so much from them. I was too busy being mom and running around with my own kids. And that's no excuse. They turned out okay in spite of that. But the grandchildren, I just seem to have more patience with and listened more. And I learned so much from them.
See, I'm struggling with that, Janet, because I've never had patience in my entire life.
Get a little egg timer, like even 2 minutes. Okay, we got 2 minutes. I'm going to ask this question. You got 2 minutes for an answer. And then my patience is gone, so you'll have to move away.
Well, the thing is, what we do is, like, his room has been an absolute mess for, about 2, maybe even 3 weeks. So we removed that technology from him. Did he like it? No. Did he tell us to F off? Yeah, he did. But that's what teenagers do. But obviously, we basically said, I said to him straight up, as it comes, I thought, how much does that technology mean to you? He thought, a lot. I'm like, okay then. Right, so what you're going to do is you're going to clean that room and then do a couple of other jobs, and then you're going to do it. Then you're going to, you can have it back. And he did that. No ifs, no buts. So it's like, he's thinking he's got that control, but in reality, we do.
Both of you do.
I want
to go on, Gilly. I feel like I'm going to get pulled on this one.
I just want to add a thought, kind of branching off of what you're describing with the video games. It's just bringing me thoughts of, clients and stuff that I've written about, and, your question, comparing, how do you distinguish between when it's an addiction, an obsession, and an interest, sort of like in degrees, right, of severity?
It's a good question.
It's a really good question. But I'm thinking about, I feel like when you see it, you just know it. Like
Yeah.
you know when it's an addiction. And I think what's hard about like video gaming or social media use or shopping, like these behavioral addictions that are not explicit substances or gambling, like people minimize how detrimental I think these addictions, they're not even called addictions, but they can be addictions. I have seen it with my very eyes. And as someone with ADHD, I feel like I've experienced it too with social media and with shopping. But those are so easy to get your hands on. And even especially now, you know, with the internet, it's not like, you know, if you choose not to buy any alcohol, like you would have to leave the house to get alcohol, but you can from your bedroom shop, or you can from your bedroom, you know, go on social media and spend hours on it, just like, you know, being unproductive and being glued to a screen, like all of you were saying. But I think when addiction is, you know, evident, and I've seen it also with teens, it's like you start to see the person becoming agitated, aggressive, start to engage in other behaviors in order to obtain the substance. I'm calling it a substance because it becomes one. Like, you know, I've had clients who have stolen money, credit cards, you know, so that way they can pay for games or they can buy something online. And I hear my child screaming, and I'm sorry, my husband. Okay. You know how it is to be a mom. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Okay. So when they start to engage in these other kind of like deviant behaviors in order to get their hands on the substance, then it's an addiction. And then I think it really should be treated as an addiction and as an object that they're addicted to. So it's sort of like, I don't know, Adam, like you have a history of alcohol abuse, right? So would you tell yourself, like, I'm going to reward myself with a beer ever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, when I was drinking, I was brainwashed, and I admit I was brainwashed into believing alcohol was the answer to everything, every emotion, every activity, even passing a minor test. I reward myself with an alcohol.
Yes, but now
I was depending on alcohol.
Now that you've recovered, do you ever just kind of intermittently reward yourself with a beer? Or
I don't drink. I don't drink, and I don't intend to.
There you go. That is the point that I'm trying to make. I think maybe for a very small minority of people who have had a legitimate addiction, maybe they can control themselves moving forward. Yeah. However, we are vulnerable for a reason. And that's why abstinence is usually the best solution. So why is it that for a child or for a teen who is addicted to social media or to video games, we can tell them, oh, now you can reward yourself with this substance that you're addicted to? Well,
the thing is, first of all, Ashly, did you put that comment in?
I did put that comment in.
Right, okay, fair enough. Because you scared me a minute, please. Don't do that again. Don't do that again. But the thing is, while you were talking, Gilly, I've actually, because you got me a word in my head about psychological addiction. I've never heard that phrase before, ever. But I've just Googled it, and AI, don't get me started on that. Because I put, what is the difference between a behavioral addiction and a psychological addiction? Because people think the same, but they're actually not. But while both behavioral and psychological addiction involve compulsive behaviors, the key difference lies in the nature of the addiction. Behavioral addiction involves a compulsion towards specific activities or behaviors, while psychological addiction is a mental state of dependence on a substance or activity. And that's exactly what you were saying.
I wonder if there's something about addiction as well, is that we will part of being addicted is we will justify and deny we're addicted, because otherwise we would give up perhaps quicker and easier. So part of it is we will do everything we can to the extent to start off with, by justifying why we need to carry on doing this thing. There's certain benefits in our mind, or we need it, or and I think that's why sometimes it's not always the person who realizes they're addicted, but obviously it can be if it's parents or friends or partner that actually realizes the person's addicted and steps in, and whether it's not saying a formal intervention, but they step in and make the person realize that they're addicted, because I think it's not always the person's addicted who comes to a realization and they need help. I think actually it can be quite often the opposite. That they just
well that was me. Because obviously going back to me at AA is because obviously I've been going since April of last year. Fair enough, I had a couple of months off, but for those first couple of months I went, I didn't admit I'm an alcoholic. I didn't. I was just saying I'm in recovery. But now I can actually openly admit I am an alcoholic, and I'm a grateful one.
I guess that's why they have in the AA, you say, isn't it? You start off by stating, your name and I'm an alcoholic, because that whole point is you have to admit, because so many people deny.
They do deny, yeah.
Of course,
and that's the resentment you have towards yourself.
I think even.
Were you going to say something, Gilly?
Yeah, even people who are addicted, they still deny. It's like in and out, because it's like this justification, like you're saying. And I've also seen, I think it's even harder with video games or things that are normalized.
Yeah, great.
A teenage boy, of course he loves video games. Or give him just a few minutes, but then it becomes like, well, this time it was 3 hours, then it was 6 hours. Now, he's slamming the door and holding it shut so his parents can't come in the room. So it's like it builds up, and you kind of you learn to pick up on these patterns, and it feels very cyclical, because maybe there's like, well, I can prove you wrong, like I can handle this. And then maybe you handle it for like 3 weeks. Then you think, but now I need a reward, and you dive back in to the addiction, and that's it. You're sucked in again. And the same thing happens all over again. It's very manipulative, I think, like in the person's mind, and then also in the way that they explain their experiences to other people. And I really do feel like, I think maybe Nick said this, you said it's like, is the addiction, right? Is it controlling you, or are you in control? And I like to think of it as like, Dexter, the TV show. I sort of think of addiction as like a dark passenger, right? It's sort of a dark passenger is driving you around, and you totally feel like you are at its mercy.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. Go on, Ashly.
Well, so, and then that begs the question of, okay, in today's world of technology and how much it's so relied upon for everything, is there truly a way to break that addiction of technology and of a phone? Like, do you literally have to go back to a freaking flip phone, and that's what you have for the rest of your life? What does that look like when everything is literally moving? Like, I don't even know if you can still buy flip phones, because we've gotten that years ago.
You can.
But, with everything moving into AI and the smartphones and all, like literally having a computer at your fingertips, how do you truly break that addiction? Like, are we going to start having like cell phones anonymous type of, like, you know what I mean? Because it's literally
it's only going to get worse.
I've got an answer to that.
So how do you break that of, like you said, you do a digital detox, but then you go right back into it, and then you're sucked right back into the addiction and, oh, I need to do a digital detox again. It's just like you said, it's this cycle. But how do you truly break it where, sure, you can set timers, but you can also ignore timers. Like I tell my kids, okay, you've got 30 minutes to play your game, and I set a timer. Well, what do you think they do? They just ignore the stupid timer, and I say, okay, your time's up, and here they are still playing on the phone. Okay, so then I pull it from their hands, and they've literally got like a death grip on the stupid thing. It's like, no, you said your time is up. Like
it affects their
I've
mood.
got an answer.
They're
I've
like
got an answer.
after.
Yeah.
But before we get to Janet's question, because it is a good one about habits as well, I'm going to take the piss here a little bit, but I think the only way to remove technology or the internet or anything like that from teenagers or kids or that is to have a zombie apocalypse.
But you can't take it out of the schools now. It's in there. Like, you
I
can
know.
talk about an addiction all you want, but an addiction, you have to quit drinking. Like, take that out of your life. We cannot, with our system, with careers, with school, all like that, we cannot remove that technology. It's not allowed. Like, everything's learning. Look at us right now. We're on this to share information. So somebody has to sign up into it like we did, or watch it.
It's like with the schools as well, isn't it? Where I'm going to feel myself old here, but when I was in school, obviously, wooden desk, wooden table, I sat on my arm, so I weren't sat in groups, where obviously you can flip it up and put your work in, and we was watching from a projector, and you had to write down the information. Now there's freaking wireless whiteboards and stuff like that, or whiteboards on the desks that the people can write on. Why? Why?
They started doing like the Chrome for kids here in the United States. They started doing like Google Chromebooks. When our oldest was in high school and they started doing this Google Chromebook, I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. What in the world happened to textbooks, notebooks, and folders? And you had, you went to the store, you got a matching notebook, you got a matching folder, you had to use a brown paper bag to cover the damn book. Like, he wouldn't come home with a textbook ever, or hardly ever. Everything was entered into Google Drive. It was shared this way, and it was all this digital stuff. Okay, then fast forward when COVID happened. Now you've got to put all of these kids onto the system, and they're home with their computers, and they got to log in, and they've got to do this, and they got to share everything virtually. The school had no idea what the hell to do. It was a damn disaster. Half of them could never get in. Then the parents had to help them sign in and had to watch them, like, all sitting at the kitchen table. How are you supposed to work from home then? Like, it was just a nightmare. And then,
speaking of that, I remember during that, our eldest, he hated English, the lesson English. Obviously, he likes it now, but he hated it. And when they were doing the lesson on Zoom, obviously they asked him to stay to hear that. So he heard the introduction, fair enough, and then you're like, and this is exactly what he said. He went, "Fuck this," and closed the laptop down. That's what he did.
Yeah, like,
and he never did the lesson.
Well, and not only that, but talk about feeding into, again, that technology piece.
Yeah.
Technology has so many glitches within it, let's just be honest, that to expect it to work in that capacity. But kids are so tech savvy. I can remember him coming home and saying, "Oh yeah, this classmate got busted for watching pornography because he got around the firewalls." Like, kids aren't stupid. So you're literally going to give them a device like that they can access this kind of stuff on. Well, that can go into a whole nother can of worms. But I will not. And again, the phone that I have here at home for the kids is supposed to be for emergency use only. Yes, do they play games on it? Yes, they do. But in the grand scheme of things, I only have one phone. They're not going out with their friends and going here and going there and saying, oh yeah, I've got my cell phone. No, it is one house phone. That's it. Like, I'm not getting each of you a cell phone. There's no way in hell, because I'll never freaking see you. Like, you'll all be attached to the thing.
Well,
it's interesting. In the UK at the moment, it's on the news this morning, the British government are putting through a law to try and
ban phones in schools.
Yeah, ban school phones in schools, and also have age verification in all smartphones where if you're under 16, it blocks all social media notifications.
Yeah.
So I think the interesting thing that the government level, the government is seeking to control the effect of phones and technology on children. But at the same time, I work in schools, and they're all given iPads at 7 years old to use. So it's this sort of contradiction going on. But I think there's something about sort of education through culture, because I remember slightly different. When I started off working, I worked in private banking, and it was all in the 80s. It was all cocaine and alcohol. Genuinely, it was crazy. It was like a normal sort of part of a culture, and it very much fitted the 80s. But now, that is 40 years later, that's very much changed. You don't have that. There's been a change in culture within the banking. It was expected part of a culture in the 80s, and now that's that doesn't exist in that same way. And I suppose it's the same with technology. I think we always have to change the sort of. I don't know exactly how, but it's changing that culture.
Well, the thing is, when we were speaking to our kids the other week, because obviously they're actually interested in how we was brought up for our era, and even though we got called dinosaurs when I said this, because they usually like WhatsApp. They usually WhatsApp the friends. When they do have phones, but I'm like, well, we didn't do that. If we wanted to know if our friend was in whatever house they were in, we got our bikes, went round to their house, and if their bike's not there, they're not in. They're not in, they're out. If there is, knock on the door. But now they're just texting. Are you in? Are you coming out? Just
or
go around.
You had to pick up a phone that was attached to the wall with a cord.
And speaking of that, if you use your phone, you can't go on the internet.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Dial-up TV, was it, or something like that?
You had to wait until like 7 p.m. when it was 3 minutes. Oh gosh, yeah. Like the day.
I tell my son these things, and he can't believe he can't get his head around it. He's 9. And he's like, "What?" The phone, the cord,
dial-up
computers.
Definitely dial-up.
I was going to say, actually, you were talking about how we used to have a folder and a binder, and I was going to say, like, what was the name of the folder with all those cute little animals that was like really colorful?
Lisa
Frank. I Googled it.
Yeah.
You haven't.
Like, that's what the children really need.
Oh, literally. Like, and to write things. I mean, there's some things that I'll ask my 13-year-old, and he's like, what do I need to know this for? Isn't that what Google is for? I'm like, touche, kid, touche, because we used to have to look it up in a damn encyclopedia. And I have the encyclopedias that my mom bought me in the 90s, the Britannica.
Oh, dear.
And they're all like, they're pretty pristine yet, and I have them where they are part of our homeschool stuff, and I've had to dig some of them out once in a while when there's a specific topic. I will have my kids pull out the encyclopedia, or because they're so heavy, they use them to flatten things, because and the dictionary. I've got the whole freaking set. And my mom was going to throw them away. I said, the hell if you are, you're going to give them to me, and they're going to be used because I'm going to teach my kids to look in a book for something.
Well, I think we can all agree kids today do not know the benefits of nature.
No.
Unless their parents are very much into nature and they take them on stuff and that. But when we had our grandkids and they had spelling tests, I used my letters from my Scrabble game, and during breakfast, they had to spell the letters out for the word. I'd say the word, and they had to find the right letters to put it together. Not write it out, but they had to find the right letters to put it together.
That is a genius idea. Thank you.
Well, it made it fun too.
Yes, thank you. I think I'm going to go buy a Scrabble game just to freaking have the letter.
Go to a secondhand store and get them, and just get the things.
Okay, so back to Janet's question. How does a habit fit into it? So, your son not cleaning his room, Adam, for example. Did he freeze? Where did he go?
I guess so.
Well, what happened?
I don't know. Where'd you go? There you are.
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm here anyway.
You're back.
Oh, sorry, Janet. I know I missed. But, here we go, Kerry. We pay for unlimited minutes on mine and Adam's phones, and we don't use them more, but we used to talk for hours at night years ago. Yes, we did. And that's what we were discussing, Kerry, how we was talking until 6:59 p.m. We hung up. When it got to 7 o'clock, we rang up again, and that was it till about midnight.
That was Les and I. We talked for hours because he worked straight afternoons. I worked straight days. And that was the only time that we got a chance to spend time together. We talked on the phone for hours.
Yeah, me and Kerry did that. We did that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when he went to depot, when he went into training in Regina as a police officer, we wrote letters because phoning was too expensive because it was long distance.
Yeah. Okay, Adam, go and answer Janet's question now.
Yes. So, let me go back to it. How does habit fit into it? Example, Adam, your son not cleaning his room. It's all about setting a routine. You have to have a routine in place, but it's getting the kids to comply with it, which could be very, very tricky, especially with our kids, because they like to have that control and they like to defy us, tell us to fuck off. But so it's like, what is the point? So we basically just said to them, if you ain't gonna help us clean up, if you ain't gonna do this, you don't get rewarded. So you may as well just snap out of these habits, because habits are there to be broken. And that's what I said. So if you want technology, you'll get off your ass and get on with it. But if you want to keep sitting there, then you don't get what you want. Plain and simple.
I'm going to throw something else at just out of curiosity, okay? So what if, like, there's those TV shows with hoarding and stories about hoarding and that. And I think it all starts, like, I'm not perfect, you guys. My room is messy sometimes too, most of the time. But what about, this is what could lead to this if you don't love and care for your things. This is what can happen. I don't know. Would something like that work to say, this could lead to this, or this, you tidying it could lead to this? Which one do you want?
Yeah, that always goes back to saying, I know Ashley's talked more about consequences, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've had the consequences of behaviour, and whether that's hoarding or addictive behaviour, there's a consequence to everything we do in life, and I suppose it's
and visualization, because concept, just talking about it doesn't always give you the picture of what could be, right?
Well, it came to that with our daughter, and FYI, Kerry, check Facebook, I've messaged you. That was like with our daughter, because at one point, this was about 5, maybe even 6 years ago, we went into a room to check, see if she's okay, and we couldn't see her on the bed. She was in the bed, but we couldn't see her. So we was moving teddies out the way because she had an obsession with teddies. So we were moving teddies around, and she was there. She literally piled all these teddies on top of her, covering her. So I'm like, right, Kerry actually did that. She basically said, right, so what you're going to do is whatever you don't play with, get in black bag, and we're going to either sell them or donate them. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm. And how'd she react to that?
Well, she got money for it.
Okay.
It's like Lucas with when he was into Paw Patrol as well. Like, he had this big track and he spent, Well, we spent about a good couple of £100 on it, and he grew out of it, which, okay, fine. So he got the money for it.
Mhm.
We didn't get it.
I suppose that's the thing, define it as you're losing, you're losing something, but then you're gaining. If you sell that thing, you're gaining your money back. So it's trying to present things as, there's a loss reward, there's a loss cost reward ratio of everything. And it's, trying to picture what you're gaining. You're not losing something, you're gaining something else with that. And the thing you gain may not be just money, it might be freedom, it might be, I don't know, better quality of something, life, whatever, but it's trying to pitch what you're gaining, not losing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, there's times that my kids will, it kind of cracks me up. They will put together, well, I want to sell this. Okay, it's a broken dinosaur that you want to get money for. Trying to get across to them, like, you can't sell broken things. Like, if you want to sell something, it needs to be in decent condition for you to have a rummage sale, is what we call it. So there are times, especially when it's nice out, that my kids will put their stuff together of what they want to get rid of, and they will have a rummage sale. And he's 14 now, but he'll make a sign at the end of the driveway and put it in certain locations. And I mean, he's made some money selling it. Or he'll do like artwork, and he'll stand at the end of the driveway and he'll literally sell some artwork. So it's letting them, yes, be creative, but also getting that point across of, you can't sell your used junk, kind of a thing that's broken. Like, it has to be in a decent condition for you to be able to sell it. But there are also times that I get very frustrated of, okay, hold on, wait a minute here. Now you're trying to sell my stuff. Like, you're not just selling your things, but you're trying to gather like things that I've purchased for you not that long ago, and now you're trying to sell it and make money. No, that's not happening. So I think there just needs to be rules defined for them and laid out.
Setting those boundaries.
Of what is acceptable to sell and what isn't, type of a deal. But I think it's also good and a good learning experience for them. So there are times if my kids don't want to clean their room, okay, well, here's a garbage bag. Now you get to pick it all up because I'm done looking at it. Or if I've asked you so many times to pick it up, I don't care if it's your sock that goes with the sock that's in your drawer, or it's your underwear, it dirty, clean, it doesn't matter. I'm shoving it all in this garbage bag. And then they're like, no, don't take that. Well, you should have cleaned it up the first time that I asked you, or maybe even the second time. Now we're on time 10 and now I'm pissed off. So it goes away. We've done that multiple times. And rather than throwing it truly in the garbage can, I bag it up and I shove it somewhere, either in my closet or in the basement or somewhere where it's like, okay, now it's off limits. And then when we emptied our basement not long ago, I'm kind of digging through things and I'm like, oh, there's that missing sock that I know is in my missing sock bin. And oh yeah, so then at that point it's been down here for so long, it's going in the trash. So it's one of those things of, if they have too much stuff, they're going to make huge messes. So sometimes it's that minimalization for them, but then they'll figure out, even when there's not a lot of things, how to make a giant mess. So you're kind of like, where do I draw the line? I'm not one that likes to keep things that are not useful for my kids. So if they can build with it and they can construct with it, I deal with the messes of, say, Legos, for example. Okay, things, but you have to learn how to clean up the
Especially when you step on them.
Oh God! Ugh.
Don't even get me started. I'm still stepping on them now.
Yeah. So I very much like have my kids, okay, you're going to do a you clean in between. And then probably every 6-ish months, I'll do a mom clean. And that's where it literally takes me 6+ hours, because I dump it all in the middle of the floor. everything. I kick them out and I go through every marker. I go through all of the things. If it doesn't have a cap, if the pen is disassembled, if the pencil is broke, if it's missing the eraser, like I go through everything. And I end up with 6 to 8 garbage bags of just stuff that I throw away. I go through their clothes. If it's all stained, if it like anything. And I go through it and I mom clean it is what I call it. And it drives my husband bonkers. But for me, I know it takes dedicated time and effort. It's like, okay, now we're good for another 6 months. Let's see how much mess we can, make between now and then, or what we can maintain. And then that's just what we do.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to dad clean it. Like, just make the huge mess. And even with he's our now adopted son, but when he was in foster care, if I would do a room search, I would destroy the shit out of his room. It would all go in the middle of the floor. Everything. Mattress, all of it. Clothes, dresser drawers, anything he owned, it would go right into the middle of the floor. And then it was, guess what? Now clean it up. And he did, and it was all organized, and it was all put away, and I would go up there and help him, but he was responsible for most of it. Because if I knew he had some kind of paraphernalia, or if he was stealing stuff, or if I had a hint that I needed to do a room search, I was going to make a mess. And I did, and he went and he cleaned it up. So
Kerry, you still on?
Maybe it's room search time. Let's find out.
Maybe we need to do that.
Maybe you find out what they're hiding. And it sounds very invasive of their privacy. But again, it's your house. They live under your roof, your rules. If they don't like it, again, they're under the age of 18. They really don't have a choice.
Yeah.
They're 18.
Fair enough. Right. Final words, because obviously it's just popped up my battery's low. So, final words. Any final words, guys?
Yeah, just keep on going and trust the people that are there for you, and ask for help when you need it. And that is the hardest thing. I know it's the hardest thing, but we have to keep saying it so that they know that we're here for them when they need us. And even if it's just to send them hugs or emojis.
Yeah. Nick?
Yeah, just to say again, I think whatever you do in life, are you in control? Does it control you? Are you enjoying it and seeing benefits for it? Because I think the moment you're not seeing those benefits, the moment you're not doing it because you enjoy it because you can't stop doing it for whatever reason, then it's controlling you. So I think it's just obviously I think encourage everyone, whatever you do in life, just to have that awareness of. Are you enjoying doing it because you want to do it or because you can't help it?
Ash?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of what Nick said, are you aware of what you're addicted to even? Is it that enjoyment? Like, hey, I'm going to go for a hike today. Is it something that's healthy for you, or is it something that is bringing toxicity into relationships, your everyday life? Is it affecting your job, your home, anything like that? If you're answering yes to those questions, then like Janet said, ask for help.
Absolutely. Gilly.
So I'm thinking for my final words, I want to provide a book recommendation. So one book that I've really enjoyed reading about addiction is titled Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke. So hopefully you find that helpful. She really dives into the science behind addiction and just her experiences with treating addictions.
Absolutely. I know Nancy will probably comment at some point. I don't know where Richard was or Christine, but thanks all. This is it now for a good couple of weeks. I've actually got the topic for 2 weeks as well. and it's actually similar to this one. It's actually hoping for a breakthrough from addiction. So, yeah. So it's similar. And we have actually got a couple of guests on for that one. But other than that, yeah, keep kicking ass. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and keep subscribing. So, cheerio.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.